Hey, everybody. Welcome to another talk preview for the AI MLC of the Rockies. My name is Ben Ryder. I'm joined today with Chase Christensen and Amber Graner, two colleagues, friends, fellow board members. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great.
Doing great.
I mean, I'm above ground, so every day above ground's a good day as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's a great day.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Yeah, doing great. Excited to have this conversation. I know this is a topic that's near and dear to our hearts, and so it'll be really fun to share this with the community. I mean, I think talking about why community in front of a community is like it's a good time, right?
So I'm really excited about this, not just because I love you both deeply as humans. Full disclosure, we worked together before, and we're a crew here. We're a crew, But like the stuff that these guys have been up to in the past, currently, and into the future is like old school tech stuff, like ground and pound, get value, make awesome stuff. It's your first one on my left of the screen. So why don't you go first? Just let the people quickly know who you are.
Yeah, I love to hop in on who I am, and I think it would even be fun to talk about the company that we were at when we met each other, because I think that's also really relevant to the topic at hand. But we'll start with who I am. So, Chase Christensen. Right now, I work at a company called Wiz. I do AI security. I'm also on the steering committee for Kubeflow. My background is I started actually going to school for game design. Decided that this was really hard and really competitive, and that I hated manual interventions. I actually did bug testing. I was like, this is crazy. We should automate all of this. So I got really into on-prem infrastructure, got into the cloud, and I actually met Amber because I was like looking over the fence at all the cool kids doing open source, and I was like, can I do that too? And then I got involved from there, and so I've been building communities and working with them since then.
Awesome. Amber?
So I'm Amber Graner, and I've been in open source now for almost 2 decades. I can't believe it's been that long. But got started in the Fedora and the Ubuntu communities, and then kind of moved over to the embedded, Linux side of things with Linaro, and then went over to Open Compute, the data center hardware. And then, went to the cybersecurity side with Zeek and at CoreLight. And then made my way over to Aricto, which is where we all met on the machine learning side, and, involved in the Kubeflow side of things and the CNCF. And currently I'm the head of DevRel and community for a startup called SmithOS. So it's agentic AI. So, our past lives at Aricto and now with the agentic AI side of it, it really lends itself well, to what we're going to talk about on the 20th. But I think who I am at my core is somebody who really thinks that, if you want to do something, if you're passionate about something, then you should lean into it. And whether it's open source, whether it's music, we were just talking about, music, we were, all the tools and stuff that are out there, whatever it is, just dive in. Like, don't wait. I tell people all the time, you don't need permission. Like, go learn, go learn something, share something. And at my core, I am this person who wants to just empower people to be the best person that they can be in whatever state, whether it's technology or whether it's sports. I mean, I played, tackle football at 50. So, whatever it happens to be, like, just lean into it and have a good time doing it. So, yeah, I think at my core, I'm just that person who wants to empower people to just live their dream. Don't live somebody else's, go live your dream,
Yeah, I gotta say, I think Chase and I came to this space, on a less traveled path, so to speak. But like, I would be pretty confident saying to you, audience, that Amber's somebody to listen to just because she's interesting. Like, I don't think there's anybody in the country like her, like in this industry. Like, Amber is literally a one of one. Like, I mean, like, please come to this meetup, come talk to her. She has just like such an interesting background, I mean, Chase is amazing too. I'm great, but like, yeah. So you guys are going to be giving a talk in a couple weeks here. Do you want to just give me like, kind of the elevator pitch, give me a little appetizer? my cheese curds. Give me the cheese curd.
I think Chase is better at elevator pitches than I am. I might be great if we got 120 stories to go up, but not if it's only 4. Like Chase is better at that. Like
Yeah. So I think like really when we talk about what the talk's about, right, which was really fun to say actually after I said it, is there's a lot of lessons learned over my year. When I think about the journey from open source, it was working with people like Amber and seeing the people that were back in like these days open source are crazy because agents are making code and anyone can contribute. There's like, people are submitting PRs to these projects that you've never heard of, and they're like 3 million lines because you can just create AI code so quickly. That's insane. But Amber and a lot of these people came from the world where it was like, hey, we use this project to get our job done, and we all should contribute together. And then companies came in and slowly like work with those projects, and like that was like another Wild West. So I think there's lessons from that era as well as this era and how to get involved in open source, and also how to figure out if these communities, whether it's an open source community as an open source open code, or it's an open source community as in kind of like what we're building at the AMLC, where it's people contributing code and ideas to each other without an expectation of necessarily like direct income, right? Time, talent, treasure, however you want to contribute to the greater good of the project. I think there's a lot of lessons you can learn to figure out if a community like that's a good fit for you, and also kind of the nitty gritty of like open source, open core, how to figure out who's invested and where your contributions go, so that you're confident when you get started. And also, that you kind of have a playbook, right? I think the hardest part about doing this is like Amber said, showing up fearless and carving your own path and getting an invite. Whether or not it's as easy to get one at first, I think there's a lot of tips and tricks we can give people so they can contribute in ways that are meaningful for their careers and their goals.
Sure. That's
and
fantastic.
I think for me, 2 decades in this, and I think back to what I wish somebody had told me when I got started. Like, there wasn't there are playbooks now. There's a whole science behind doing all of this now, and there's health checks that we had to create, that didn't exist way back when. We just kind of went with our gut instinct, and now there's like these whole, like, just to get you started. And there are all these things that I wish somebody had told me when I got started, whether it was in contribution or whether it was, how to judge if a project is good for you. What's the maturity level of it? Is this something you really like? You might be passionate about something, but you got to be pragmatic too. I mean, let's kind of understand that, passion and pragmatism have to go together, right? You got to keep your lights on. I always tease and say I like new shoes, but sometimes it's like I just want to go skydiving and I just want to pay for my hobbies. But you got to be a little pragmatic about it, and it would be great if the world ran on good intentions. I mean, but let's look around the world right now. The intentions aren't as good as we'd like them to be. So you got to be a little bit pragmatic about things. And so, kind of balancing out, I used to help organizations figure out where do you collaborate, because you don't want to give away the secret sauce. You don't want to give away what's going to keep your lights on, but there's certain ways to figure out what can you open, what do you hold back. And I'm also not a person that is, everything has to be open source, the right tool for the right job. And sometimes proprietary tools are just more mature, and they're easier and they're better, and because open source hasn't caught up yet. But there's no reason why you can't live in both lanes, right? And understand that. And I think some of the things that we're doing here, at the AMLC of the Rockies is, we're giving people their options. We're doing the due diligence, and we're giving people choices so they're informed, and they're as well informed as they can be to make the decisions they need to. And that's all anybody can ask, right? Like, we're not leaning, like, I love open source and I'm a huge community person, but I'm also not gonna cut off my nose to spite my face to tell somebody to do solely open source if that's not the right tool for the right job. So
Well, that's perfect because I was actually at a meetup recently and someone was asking me about certain projects I've invested, but it's like Kubernetes or Kubeflow, right? Someone says, oh, when should I use Kubernetes? Should I always use Kubernetes? And I think to be able to have the frank conversation of like, here's a day in the life of someone running Kubernetes. Here's me being on a support call, helping someone run Kubernetes. Should I just go run Kubeflow in my environment right now? I had a director level person. Should I just go get Kubeflow figured out? What's the maturity level? And have that honest conversation of like, hey, here's kind of the vendors in the space. Hey, here's what I see in the community. This might be worth your team's time. I think it's valuable because these projects and stuff, you are betting a little bit of your time and putting a risk. And if you're going to bring it into an org or contribute to it as part of your org, you want to make sure it works out for you. And you want to make sure that you have someone that's actually kind of seeing the sausage making, so to speak. Otherwise, everyone's really great. It's like starry-eyed, like Linux, right? Oh, I'll just go contribute to Linux. It'll be amazing. And then you go talk to people that have been doing it for 10 years. And they're like, this is crazy. Like there's wars over drivers and things. And like you hear all these crazy stories. And so it's really interesting to have that, like the DNA and understand what's going on, be able to talk to people versus just read kind of the blurbs.
Well, I think that also leans into a little bit, Chase, you and I both are big fans of Brene Brown, right? And the vulnerability piece of it. And I think to have those conversations, you lean into the strength and vulnerability, right? You lean into that trust. And I think anytime you're dealing with people, especially when people are willing to give up, like you said, time, talent, or treasure, and they're giving of their time, you got to be vulnerable. You can't have the chip on your shoulder.
Transparent.
You can't worry about, you always want to be tactful and that kind of stuff. Am I being kind? All those things, but you have to lean in and be a little vulnerable and have those honest conversations that, you're not just a flag bearer for a particular project. You're a truth bearer, and you got to be trusted, and you got to be sincere. And if people can't trust you to give them the best advice, not just lean into whoever's writing your paycheck or whatever project you're on, but the best advice, they're not going to trust you later. So you got to be a little vulnerable when it comes to that. So.
It's the classic, it depends, right? If someone just says, of course, they'll solve all your problems. At some point I go, are you selling me like a philosopher's stone here? Like that should be like when your ears perk up. It's like, is this a mythical item? It works for everyone? You don't know anything about me. How do you know it works for me? And I think that's part of this.
You know what though? I will say, like, I'm just looking for a silver lining with all the economic chaos, specifically all the churn and lack of funding and all that. The nightmare that tech's been for the last couple of years. It's creating something interesting. Like we're forging a new path here, but it's kind of fun to look back to like 1998 to 2012 era tech. Like the kind of punk rock stuff of like actually building things. And I think there's more of an appetite for that, to where people want to actually do something. They don't want to just just crap out UX for no reason on buttons and stuff in perpetuity, that goes nowhere. Like we actually have to start doing stuff again, and I got like a random ass funny anecdote, because like a common thing we hear these days is like kids are raised on smartphones, right? They don't know how to code, they don't know how to use computers or whatever. But like there's stuff there, like there's some rebellion there. My oldest kid a few weeks ago got in trouble, but because he figured out how to install Linux onto his school provided Chromebook so he could download Steam, and then showed all his other friends how to do it, and ran a bootleg Linux installation service for school lunch money credits for the snack room. And I was like, God, it was like lowercase in trouble, but I was like, man, this is stuff to capitalize on. Like we're in a new era here, and I'm really excited about that.
It's funny that you said something to do, and I have an anecdote too about my son, but like there's something to hope for, something to love, and something to do. Those grand essentials. And if people run out of things to love, then you got to give them something to hope for. And if they don't have something to hope for, then by all means give them something to do, right? And if a community doesn't have those things, if people don't love it, they don't believe in the future with it, like you're not solving their problem, you're not easing their pain, and they don't have anything to do, people want to go where they can be useful. I don't want to go and join a community where I just sit there and twiddle my thumbs and I listen to the same 4 people talk about the same things, and steered in that direction. Like you need new people, you need new ideas, you need, again, to be vulnerable enough to let new people with new, they see things different than you do, because sometimes you've been looking at the same page for so long that you won't see that there's a different path to take. You won't see it. So you need those fresh sets of eyes, that fresh energy, and all of that to come in and do that. So that's something to do is so important. And that's the piece that is often missing,
Well, and I think that's like, we'll talk about in our talk is like sometimes something that was crazy for me is like, why do these foundations exist? And like, it's really interesting because like even today you'll see projects that are like part of a foundation, but the main contributors are like a company and they don't open source everything. And you go, well, what is this? Right. So understanding like, are they giving you something to do because they want you to help? And can you have something else to do if they tell you to do one thing and you come in and be like, oh, I think this is a better perspective? And is it the benevolent dictator where they're going to say no and kick you? Or if you come up with a POC, are they going to be receptive to that? I think that's like really important too for like a health check. Like when you're going into these new communities, like it's like an interview, right? Like the best interviews that you could have are when you come in confidently and you're almost interviewing the interviewer. And I think that that's like a good sign in this community. Are you guys working towards something? Is this productivity because people are getting the value? People are saying, I started contributing to this project because it was awesome and solved a problem for me. Or is it just resume hunting, which I've seen before too? It's like, are you just contributing to this because it's cool and you're hoping to get a job? Well, that seems like a glass castle here. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is gonna is this actually providing value, or is this just you're hoping to get to the next actually good thing? And I think that's really critical. And talking about Ben's oldest there, like Ben's oldest would be great at the AMLC because Ben's oldest went and did a little POC. Ben's oldest went and put something on Linux. Was like, this is cool, right? Other people were like, that is cool. Show me. And like, that's the energy that I think is really amazing in communities. And I think is what we're trying to look for here at the AMLC too, right? Like we want constant, that energy, kind of that like Linux user group energy where it's like, look what I've done with these tools. Do you want in on this action? And I think that's awesome that your oldest is doing that already.
Pete and I got the, call from the school when the kids were in high school, and my son had taken a live CD back in those days, didn't install anything, who's running off a live CD. They didn't change the admin passwords on the, the access point. So he was giving all of his friends, Wi-Fi access, and they're like, well, he installed this. I'm like, I'm going to embarrass you guys. This is not installed on anything, and so, and well, you should thank him because he just found this vulnerability and, all those things. And so I think not just with our kids, but like people, that empowerment piece is so important where they have the confidence to go and try something. And whether it fails or whether it works, you've learned something. Maybe you learned one way not to do something, or maybe you're like, Edison, you learned 99 ways not to build a light bulb before it's, but
save people pain.
99 ways not to use this. It doesn't work this way. And you finally figure out how to work it. But it's that confidence to go and try. Right.
Yeah.
And everybody, I see kids, little kids, like, 6, 7, 8, 9, in my network of my friends and family. And they're so confident. They're like one of my friends' kids says, Miss Amber, have you ever been crabbing before? It's Louisiana. Ever been crabbing before? No, I haven't. He goes, well, I'm an expert at it. I'm going to show you. And or like he does, something on the trampoline. I'm an expert at it. I'm going to show you. And to have that level of confidence, I hope they never lose it. But, somewhere along our adult path, we get told no, or we get disappointed, or we get whatever. And suddenly that confidence that we have at those ages, it disappears. And then we have to go find it again. We have to go find it. And I think community, regardless of what type of community it is, helps you find that confidence, help you find that I'm an expert now, or that I'm an expert energy, because you've been empowered to go and try something, and you're not afraid to try it. And you're surrounded by people who are going to help you. And there's always a delete button, right? There's always, you don't have to merge that PR. You don't have to, there's things that are, temporary. And there's things that are permanent. And most things that you do in communities are temporary. They're not catastrophic, so.
Well, I think that's a safety too. Like, I think that's also critical. Do you have the safety to fail, right? And I think the little one there is like, I'm going to tell you what, crabbing, because it knows that They know that, like, if that's not how you go crabbing, you're not going to be like, you don't know how to crab. What's wrong with you? And I think that that's a sign of a healthy community too, is do you have permission to experiment, right? If you know the ending of an experiment is not an experiment, and we have to experiment to find new things, right? That's everything's a hypothesis until it faces the fortunes of reality. And so to have people that have done it before and can say, hey, don't go down that path. I've been there. It's a nightmare. But hey, let's together go down this other path. Kind of that trail finding, the big AMLC theme of like going farther together, going and finding trails, carving trails, that really aligns into that. And that's kind of why you see all like the like trail crew and like the Git summits. It's because like, if you just were to walk out and like go hiking without someone who's like maintained these paths and help you find a path forward, it's a nightmare, right? But bushwhacking is not fun. So we're trying to prevent bushwhacking and help carve paths together.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think too, but to your point, Chase, like somebody who says, oh, I wouldn't go down that path, but then you kind of sit back and go, you know what? We're going to let them go down that path. This is one of those lessons they need to learn.
If they want to, right?
And then you go, here, let me help let me help you back up. Now that you've tried this, let's go over here. And because sometimes you can let people do that. And it's a learning experience, and it's something that it's almost a rite of passage. Okay, you go try that. Get back to me. And, you know, and it's one of those, and it's a kindness thing. You're being kind to let them, you know, go and experiment that, and you go, okay, cool. Now come back over here. We'll go do this other thing together. And
maybe they'll get it right.
There's that.
Maybe they'll figure it out. Yeah, maybe it was you. So I like that too.
Yeah.
You know, I actually, you know, hold the phone here. The interviewer has a thought. I think the reason that not just the work that we've done with this community that we're starting, but like open source, just partnering with you guys and working on open source stuff as a whole, you know, seeing that passion is really awesome. But I think the thing that you guys have figured out that a lot of people haven't is that the price for community, like, because, and this is not just endemic to tech, this is across the board. This is everywhere in this country right now. People are like, man, I miss community. I miss whatever that looks like, you know, I want to bring that back. But the thing that not a lot of people talk about is like the price of community is being uncomfortable and inconvenienced.
I mean, I think that to be comfortable with being uncomfortable is the first stage of growth, right? And that could be, it's uncomfortable to maybe be wrong, right? It's uncomfortable to maybe have the right idea and it not being accepted. And you have to maybe go later down the road. It's uncomfortable having to kind of go with the flow and have these hard conversations and know that there's lots of different paths to write. What's the path forward? And I think it all comes down to kind of like the big, like under umbrella of community is that trust. And I think when you think of like even like when we talk about AI and like big data, it was like throw everything at it. And then it was like, time out, that's really expensive. You know, that's crazy. What if we threw the right things at it, right? Instead of learning Chinese by reading every Chinese book ever, I bet there's like 6 books that can get us like really, really good at that. I think that's like the idea of a community is instead of just like desperately going to the internet, go find someone that can be transparent and have that trust with you. You know, is safe to be uncomfortable with. You might disagree, but also appreciates that you're there, knows that you're there to grow together, and also is comfortable enough with you to say, "Oh, I don't know. Let's figure it out together." And I think that that's great, right? That's another sign of a healthy community is people willing to say, "Well, no, that is a gap, and that's okay. It's okay to have gaps, and admit that."
And I think oftentimes people don't want to admit that, and then. You know, when you're junior in your career and you're just starting out, you feel comfortable saying, I don't know. But then when you get, you know, director, VP, you know, and further up, it's a little, again, being vulnerable. It's a little harder to do that. But, you know, you miss the opportunity to learn if you act like you know something when you don't. And then it also, you in that moment where when you're not honest about, I don't know, let's go learn together. And you trying to like, make it sound like you know more than you do because you don't want to admit that you don't. Then the person picks up on that, or the people pick up on that. And then there's this doubt that creeps in because now all of a sudden people have seen you tap dancing or seen you not being sincere. And you have to be careful with that because you might have to come back and go, you know, I was wrong. I really didn't know.
Right.
So why not just say, I don't know. but let's go learn together. And then you get the opportunity to not only learn something and share something, but also maybe learn from someone else in the process.
You know, I think this is a really compelling pitch, you know, because we all got bills to pay, you know, and
Yeah.
complacency and mediocrity is where the economy's at right now. Come to somewhere like open source or the IMLC. Come here and take risks, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to, you know, this is not going to affect your mortgage, you know, like, you're not going to lose anything. Like, it might be uncomfortable.
Maybe an hour of your time.
Yeah. Like this
You'll learn something.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a waste. Trying and failing isn't a waste, right?
Yeah.
You
Like,
learn.
You've learned whether you consider whatever happens in that time a success or a failure, you've learned something.
Right. You learn and you
know,
win.
It is not wasted time. Yeah.
we're all buttoned up to the same, or we're all buttoned up to economic realities, you know? So like,
Right.
you know, being able to take risks and tell your boss to go soak it and join a startup or whatever, you know, like there's a bank account situation that needs to make those kinds of things possible. But, you know, we're offering open source and places like what we got going on, you know, that's a space where you can start taking risks. You can try things and fail without being punished. And I think that's really cool.
Or understand the risk. You know, I think that's another thing. Like if we talk about the nature world, right? It's like, oh, I want to go do this hike. It's like it's a really hard hike, or I want to go do Long's Peak or like a 14er. Having like that friend that's like, oh, this is like how hard it is, or hey, let's go do it together. Like you kind of understand the risks you're going to take, and you need that community for those skills. And that's also what we're interested in here, right? Like we want to help you take risks, experiment, maybe like before you bring things into like a higher risk environment, like your job or like open sourcing something. Work with this community, have your genius network where you're talking to folks, and then from there you could bring it into to when those opportunities come. Maybe there is a great opportunity to join a startup. Maybe there's a great opportunity to contribute something to a startup. Maybe within your job you're like, hey, I really can drive some change. I'm really confident it's not just me bringing it in, it's me and my community that's backing me that this is a good idea. So you come in really prepared, so that when opportunity knocks, you know you're ready, and you know you have more than just your brain working on it.
Awesome.
Oh, you know, you use the example of hiking. I use the example of skydiving. You know, you gotta, like you said, you gotta know the risk. That's why you sign the waiver saying you could die if you jump out of this plane. So you know your risk, but you've got mentors, you've got coaches, you've got all these things. And Ben, to your point, you know, in order to do great things and in order to fly, like literally fly, you got to leave the ground. You got to leave your comfort zone. And so whatever flying means to you, whatever you're leaning into, you know, leave the ground, you know, and get out of that comfort zone. And you know what? You might just fly. And that is whatever that freedom of flying is to you. Being part of a community gives you that. And that's what we're bringing to folks. And so if people are near around the Denver, Boulder area, or you just want to fly in, because why not? It's an amazing area with a great taco place just around the corner. You know, you want to come in and you want to meet people and you want to do those things, then why not lean in? If you're not from the area, like I'm not, but I'm trying to figure out how to get there in person. So, you know, come and join us, like, and meet the community, you know?
Yeah, and I think not meet the community, but build something with it. I think that's really why we want to talk about the applied is to you know, a lot of the points here is everything's great, talk is cheap, but ultimately you need to have an outcome that drives something for you, right? Like if you're an open source project and you can't install it and no one can say they're running it in production, that might be a sign that you're in an issue. And so, you know, if you're in a community and they're not really producing anything and no one's really sticking around a centralized campfire, I think that's also an issue. So when we talk about the applied, that's like, let's go build something and let's produce something that you can do, right? So it's no longer just theory. I mean, I don't know. This is like my soapbox. And like, I am so sick of going to talks and like, the guy's like, this is my amazing pipeline from Ray. And I saved all this money for my company. And I'm like, that's cool. Thanks for the 4 slides. Like, how do I do this? Do you have any code? How can I replicate this? Are you like, what are you pitching here? Do I just need to hire you? Do you want me just to tell you you're really smart? Like, how can I take this back and make myself, like, improve my time, talent, treasure, or time, talent, treasure of other people? Like, how can we scale this? So like
It's
what
that
we
call
want,
to action. Yeah.
right? We need to call like so like that's kind of like when we talk about even this talk, like Amber, like you discussing like how you look at a project and determine it's healthy, how you look at something and say it's got a lot of stars, but what does that actually mean? Like, and then giving people these tools to like say, listen, beyond just the star power, like no pun intended, like star power of a project, like when is it worth your time, and what are some red flags and green flags for these communities, and know that like what we're building the AMLC hopefully is leading into those green flags. And if we have red flags, call them out. We're making this safe environment. Like that's really what this is about. And this talk is about is like how to get started and find places that like are like the juice is worth the squeeze, right? And people are comfortable even if you say that it's not, right? You can't be everything to everyone, but having a community that says, hey, it's okay if we're not building what you're looking for. That's awesome. Hey, you're welcome if we end up bidding it. I think that's critical here. And so that's my soapbox. I'm sick of talks where I go, this is cool, but how do I do this?
Chase, you bring up a good point. Like, I go to these talks, whether they're virtual or whether they're in person, and I'm waiting for the CTA. I'm waiting for that call to action. And I'm like, I'm leaned in, and then I'm waiting. Okay, what am I supposed to do?
I'm not working in tech right now, so I can confidently say that CTA is almost always buy X software platform.
Yeah, buy our software.
Give me your email so I can farm you for leads.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
but there's also a huge opportunity when we were talking about, and Ben, you're like kind of like one of the pioneers of this, and Rachel also had a really great talk last week about this. Is like, the old school tech is cool. Like it's cool to say like, oh, I worked at this crazy company. We love Google's, we love Azure. Like the clouds are doing some really amazing things. But as the world tech changes, it becomes more accessible. It's actually becoming, I know, it's almost like that check we were writing about democratizing tech is working, and people are like, oh, oops, what does that mean? And it's like, this means that now these tech folks can get from kind of their castles in the sky, like we can start to help these automakers or these people like Ben's company, where they're like, hey, we actually don't have like maybe these cool LLM ingestion pipelines, or schools now are starting to put like safe LLMs in their environments and teaching kids. Like we can start to like be that bridge where it's like, hey, we all have worked in big tech, but how can we bring that big tech idea to these like local communities? Because I think that's where it's going to go. It's going to be these old school tech skills that used to be up on a Mount Olympus now are in everyday shops with these agents and with these tools. And we're going to actually help people work smarter and harder and really democratize tech, because we're making it not so ridiculously over-engineered and complicated, right? We're abstracting that away from people.
But here's the other thing that's happening. Code is now not being written for people. It's being written for systems. So, for example, the person who calls they need a lawyer or they need a real estate agent, and they say, hey, how did you hear about us? Well, ChatGPT told me to, that it recommended. So now I'm coming to you because this LLM told me to, right? And so now you're not writing for people to click on something. You're writing code, or you're writing content, or you're doing these things so that an LLM will mention you. So,
yes, this is Ben's talk. He's going to give sometime, because Ben has like a lot of data on this too, right? Like hey, I'm hungry today, and the LLM goes, totally, I ordered you a pizza, and you're like, that's great, LLM. Like that's the future, and who gets paid where, and how like we as engineers need to think about that. That's definitely where things are headed, right, with these LLMs and agents. So we're not going to spoil too much for Ben's talk here.
And then, from that, think about like the embodied AI that's coming. Like the light switch can determine how bright it becomes by how much pressure you put on the light switch plate with your hand. Are you in a bad mood? Are you in a good mood? Like think about how this is coming. Just and all the ways that AI is going to be shaping how we do it. Some people think, oh, they're dreading that, but it's kind of exciting to think about. We're already at the Internet of Things, but now think about the Internet of agentic AI, that agentic AI ecosystem, and managing all the agents, and all
personal
of that
computer.
Kind of
now it's like personal AI, right? It'll be very interesting.
So I think it's great, but it all starts with, where do you want to begin? So to bring it back to our talk, it all starts with, how do you get involved? What are the checkpoints? How do I evaluate it? how do I know if I'm leaning into the right project? How do I know if it's working or not? All of those green flags you talked about. And I think, Chase, you know, you and I could probably, we could talk for hours on this and never talk and never give the same example twice, right? Like I could
Right.
lean into it so much. And Ben, you're really good at being, what about this or what about that? And keeping us straight. And so I think if people want to really learn, you know, the beginning, because there's always a beginning. Nobody's born with this information. We all learn it, you know. No, and I was reading an article today. Nobody's really an expert in in AI right now because it's so new.
It's all
You
new,
know,
right?
we
10
don't
years
know
of
enough
AI
yet.
security experience. It's like there's like 4 people.
It-
Like
it-
were they like an
exactly. And so
MIT lab?
we're all learning together. So, and nobody's born with it. So let's just lean into it and let's figure out where we can go. And you have to have a start. And how do you get started? And I hope that this talk gives people, empowers people, gives people the confidence to be vulnerable and gives them the checklist that they need. Like I'm going to share like the 10 things I wish somebody had told me when I got started. And then I'm going to share the 10 things to look at, you know, when you're evaluating a community, you know, those type of things. And I'm going to give people these checklists. Here you go. You can go and by then I'll have the, you know, the AI.md file that if people want to copy it and go drop it into their repo and then, you know, have it to, you know, later they can have that too. I will give it away because like, you know,
Yeah.
can't take it with me. Might as well share it with the world. So,
All right, guys, I love this. This is so fun. I know we're like going into like kind of the, you know, we're talking a lot of like lovey-dovey feel things, but like it's just it's a good space. It's a safe space with amazing people. But with that said, now that we're heading into turn 4 on this interview here, would you guys be down for playing a little bit of hardball?
Always. Let's do
yeah,
this.
let's do it.
Okay, I've actually never done this before.
Well, you can edit it out if it's terrible.
Exactly.
He's like,
I'm gonna put on my not so friendly interviewer hat for a second.
okay.
I'm gonna ask you guys different things, different ways. I'm gonna start with Chase, play a little bit of hardball, and we'll see what happens. You guys down?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the most important things to me personally is trustworthiness, you know? So Chase, like there's no shortage of talks to go to in any major metro. There's no shortages of, you know, this sponsored that at a brewery. Like just fundamentally, like why should anyone give a shit what you have to say, and why should anyone trust what you have to say?
Yeah. First of all, they shouldn't. And there's going to be your first side of why you may want to trust me is because I'm saying, like, I have to earn your trust, right? And so let's meet, let's talk. You know, I'm not going to tell you how to use your rubric for a trustful person. I think I'm a pretty trustful person. I can give you, you know, talk to people. They've worked with me. They said, hey, Chase, this steer me right. But ultimately, it's up to you to decide if I'm the type of person you want to interact with. Now, that being said, we're pretty transparent on the website, like what we're trying to build. And I'm putting a lot of my name and my brand and my beliefs out there. I think people would, you know, it'd be pretty crazy if all of a sudden, you know, I did all this and then all of a sudden, like, they're like, actually, Chase is like the worst. And they're like, well, have these like extra the worst because he like made this crazy website. Like, that's definitely not what we're trying to build here. I build this because I've actually seen the benefits personally of these communities. And I think we can go farther together. So if that's something you're interested in, we know we have to earn your trust. And I think that trust is going together and having those experiences. Also, this is not a rotating cast. Like our goal here is to have people that show up for you and you show up for them. So these are, instead of just, oh, Rachel gave a talk, like you'll see Rachel again. You'll see Rachel, you know, the next however many meetings because Rachel wants to show up and maybe you'll do a talk with Rachel. Or maybe you'll work on a project with Rachel. I think that's also the greater thing is we want to build white papers for the community. We want to put your name on things, right? We really believe that leadership within our community is actually giving people a spot on the stage versus you being on the stage. And I think like right now we're going up there and we're giving talks. We want to say, hey, like this is come up and do it. We want to create content. We want to make things interesting. But like the goal is to get more people out there getting their name on things, whether that be a potential book we want to write as a community. Again, these white papers, maybe it's projects, maybe it's conferences where we go out and share these ideas, like whatever that is. This is, again, that apply. We want you to leave with something besides just maybe boosting someone's ego or a few hug and chugs. Like, this is really something that we want to be like a stable asset in your life, like really something like a fixture, something you can count on. So like a network that you can really rely on to go far with. We're not here just to show up and throw up, as they say.
Extremely well said. And I hand to God on the lives of my children, we did zero prep for this interview, so I did not give Chase that question in advance. That was an honest, trusty answer.
From the heart.
Yeah.
It's my Midwest energy. It's like it's like I have to be from the heart. Like, it's the best way to live your life. Otherwise, I think people get sick. So I'm a pretty I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Yeah. And and in this era, because of how easy it is to fake and pump up numbers and maybe hide the truth a little bit, I think Chase is wanting to build something that you can plant a flag on, and we're all part of that vision together, and I think that's really cool.
And we can all be proud of. Like, I think I truly believe reality is the ultimate scorekeeper, right? Like, if this is a great community for people are interested in, it'll grow, it's going to evolve, it's going to change. We don't know what we don't know. That's exciting. Like, we're going to grow and see this unknown together. And it's something I want to be proud of. It's something I want to say we all learned something. We got better. We got more time, talent, and treasure in our lives, and they're more fruitful. Like, that's the goal here. It's not just supposed to be a chore. Like, it's supposed to be where you show up and people care about outcomes together. And AI is great, but really you're showing up for the community. I think that sounds great. I think that's a great way to live your life.
Hell yeah. Well said. All right. Hostile hat back on. Going at Amber here. Okay. So Amber, and I truthfully do not mean this in any way as a pejorative, but you are very senior in your career. You've been around the block. You've seen a lot of stuff. So you're at a point where your voice might start mattering to the younger generations and people in this space. What makes you an authority on this? There's a lot of people that farm fake clout on LinkedIn and will give you your little buzzy, posts and stuff and whatnot. But like, why are you an actual authority in this space?
I honestly don't even look at myself as an authority. I look at myself as someone who has these experiences, and I'm willing to share these experiences, and I'm willing to, kind of fillet my soul, if you will, and be like, ask me the questions. I'll tell you the truth as I know it, and I truly believe there's always going to be somebody that's more senior to me, and I'm going to be more senior to somebody else. And I don't look at myself as that authority. I look at myself as a teacher, as a mentor, as just somebody who's had these experiences and just wants to share that knowledge. And how people take it is on them. Like, I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm sharing it. And you can look back through the 20 years that, I've done stuff, and I haven't limited myself to like software, but I've done software, embedded hardware, cyber, machine learning, now agentic AI, and been willing to say, okay, what could I lean in and learn? Whereas, and I'm not saying it's bad that people stuck with the open source software lane, or maybe people stuck with the hardware lane. That's totally on them. But I'm such a natural, curious person, that I just want to learn something and share something. And I think the lesson I would want people to take away from me is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to learn something new. Life happens at you fast. Chase and I both knew kind of what it's like to watch a startup not get its funding, and it, we all did, and how that affects. And you can't be afraid of that. You've got to be like, okay, this happened. I'm going to go and I'm going to make the best of it, and I'm going to lean in and find something else. And I think if we might not, like, I'll give a good example. Yesterday here in Florida, the fog rolled in, and I was driving to the beach. The fog was rolling in, and it looked like, you know, you were going to see a ghost ship appearing out of the water at any moment. You couldn't see what was in front of you. And I got to watching these little sandpipers on the edge of the water. They all only could see what was in front of them. And I thought, you know what? I don't need to see the horizon. I don't need to see what's, you know, 6 feet in front of me. I only need to see what's a few feet in front of me. And I think for me, again, I don't look at myself as an authority figure. I look at just somebody who's experienced these things. And I've, you know, I can only share what I've experienced and what I've learned. And I want people to realize sometimes you don't need to see the horizon. You only need to see a few feet in front of you, and you keep moving forward and you keep trying something else. And I hope that people will lean into what I have to say, not because I'm an authority, but because I'm sincere and I'm very open about it and transparent. And if I don't know, I don't know. If I haven't experienced something, I haven't experienced it. But if I have experienced it, I'm going to share to the fullest of my ability and with honest vulnerability as much as I can, you know. And I think that makes me a little bit unique, that, you know, that I'm willing to do that. But there's plenty of people who are doing that. But I don't, you know, hang the placard up that says Amber's an authority on anything. I'm just here to share.
I also want to say, like, yeah, we've seen, like, we're very, you know, you're a resilient crew, right? We've seen startups rise and fall, but I don't think I regret any failing startup. And I think, you know, when I look at a Ricto, like, I was doing on-prem Kubernetes, doing like hybrid cloud Kubernetes. And I was like, machine learning seems cool. And I got on an interview with Pete, and he was like, you could do this. And I was like, okay. And I remember being on Kubernetes troubleshooting calls and being like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So the fact that, like, I made the leap, sure, a Ricto didn't make $40 million, you know, like, I'm not yachting, but, like, it was awesome that I got involved in open source. I, like, got uncomfortable. I learned more about Kubernetes. I talked to cool companies. Some of these people are still in the Kubeflow community. So these people are maybe at, like, Canonical now, but, like, we're still all there. And it's like, yeah, your failures don't matter. It's like the people that you meet there, and, like, the next thing, like, everyone has, like, a cool next thing. And, like, are they going to be in this community? Like, is it going to be like us, all, like, doing this AMLC thing? Or, you know, if someone else from Ricto was doing their version of it, like, I would hop in and support them. So I think that, like, sure, maybe one thing fails, but there's always something awesome that comes from it. Especially if you can, like, you know, bring those things with you to the next job, next gig, next experience. It all layers on each other.
And I tease Chase a little bit, because I remember the day he asked me, Amber, how do I get involved in open source?
I was so
and
scared.
I'm like, all right, buckle in, because here we go. Like,
I was so scared. I was like, I was like, I don't write Linux kernel code. You're like, you don't need to. I was like, I don't do all this professional development. Like, you don't need to. Help people get started. It'll be great. Just be a friendly face. I was like, that's all it is. You're like, well, good.
Everything Chase said, but I don't do this. You don't need to. I don't do this. You don't need to. Come along.
Yeah, you don't need to. You'll be fine. And I'm glad you kind of buffered me, because it was a little of a trial by fire. But I think, you know, with all good open source projects, you kind of need a Sherpa to be like, don't worry. So,
you know, guys, great answers. Way to handle the curveball. Take a stand. I will say, for me personally, you know, I put a lot of authority and trust into both what you have to say, you know, professional and otherwise, honestly. But I think the coolest part is, like, both of you guys, not through false humility, are saying, like, hey, we want to keep earning our spot. So I think that's a cool perspective, and that's way different than what other people are doing. Like, it's
yeah. I mean, I can't tell anyone what to do, and this could just be because I do solutions engineering, right? Like, I can help you. Hopefully, I can help you. I'm also not going to tell you what to do. In fact, people actually don't like to be told what to do. You kind of have to, like, earn the right to give people advice. As they say, no one likes unsolicited advice. And I also think people's mental health is better if they stop giving unsolicited advice. I think it goes both ways. People get really mad that people don't take their advice, and you go, well, they don't have to. You know, who made you the emperor? And
well,
so I think,
there's this whole thing. I think, Chase, you know, you and I love to read different books and things like that. And I just, I ascribe to this. I don't know if you've heard them, but it's called the let them theory. Let me. You know, I just let people, like, I'm going to let them do them, and I'm going to do me. And, you know, if people lean in, great. If they don't, again, I don't want to
Show
talk
up when they
about
need it.
you.
Yeah. Show up when they ask for it and then let them know you're there. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a growth, right? People need to consent to growth because it is uncomfortable. Like, it's like I was actually watching this movie, actually about cardinals. And he was like, and it was like a murder mystery about cardinals. And there was like, he did a sermon and it was like the sin of certainty. And I was like, that's just a good life lesson. Like, let's not all fall for the sin of certainty, which is like, I know everything. I know the way. I know better than you. And it's like, I'm not Amber. I'm not Ben. So to look at Amber and Ben and be like, this is how you should live your life. And Ben's like, you've got like 10 minutes of footage on my life compared to what I have, right? You've got like a microsecond. It's like looking at like 2 frames of like, like Lord of the Rings and being like, I know where this should go. Like, no, you don't. You don't know the rest of the story. What are you doing? So I think like not being humble and like helping people is the key forward, and everyone gets better outcomes. And people like to like know that they can come in when they want to, when it benefits them. But you don't need to drag people. I just don't think anyone's ever been like dragged through the coals and come out and like, thank you so much, you saved me. Like, I think it's a little bit of a Superman complex. So
Yeah, I'm just that like, let's just show up and let's just, let's
Be
just
people.
lean into
just
it
be
and
people.
Yeah, exactly, just be people.
Just
Yeah.
be people.
All right, guys. I feel like we could go all night. So this feels like a natural little off ramp we're going to take, drifting off into a highway as we go about the rest of our day. Where's the talk happening? When's it happening? What do people need to do?
Yeah, I actually so we do have a website now. We have the AMLC of the Rockies.org.
Thank you, Chase, for that, by the way.
Yeah. So it's going to be at Code Talent, which is 3412 Blake Street, Denver, Colorado, 80205. Doors open at 6:30. Talk should start around 7:30. They usually go until 9. There's no hard cutoff. People usually kind of linger and catch up, and I think that's really important. We make sure there's structured and unstructured time. And I believe this takes place on January 20th.
Wonderful.
And just for showing up, we got some free book giveaways, and if the books aren't there, we got some coupons are going to be given out. So we got some cool giveaways at this too. So if you're in, near, or around, please show up on January 20th.
Yeah, and opportunities to join as a card-carrying member of the AMLC, which hopefully we've convinced you is worth it. And if not, you know where to find us, right?
And for the 2 people from Kamchatka that stuck around for the end of this video to watch, are you guys down if somebody wants to reach out to you on LinkedIn with any questions or ideas or connecting?
Oh, of course.
Actually, if you go to our website, we have a directory of members, and there's all sorts of information on stuff we've done as well as our LinkedIn's. So definitely check that out, and that's where to find us.
Yeah, awesome. Cool beans. Well, hope to see everybody at the talk. This has been truly awesome. Love getting to hang out with my buds. This is the best. So let's make 2026 an awesome one, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Ben.
thank you.
Thanks, Chase. Bye, y'all.